Let's go. We're live. We're live. Yes, I'm gonna break down my track Hopeless. So let's swap the camera. Boom. All right. So for me, the track started right here. I really wanted to do something with a consistent note theme. I was actually playing I believe it's the 15th prelude in D flat major by Chopin, and I really like the theme built around that, how much emphasis and like emotions you can put into a track when there's one continuous part playing and everything else develops around it. For me, it's kind of a red line in a story of a consistent point, and everything around it can happen, and it can become very big, it become very small, become very vulnerable or very epic, but there's always that one constant part of like the story of like a track, which I really wanted to make a track built around that. And since it's in E minor, I started with... So you can already hear that the piano has quite a bit of, like, it sounds a bit different than a regular piano. The biggest thing is this sound shifter chain, which is basically, it just goes an octave up and it has way more reverb. You feel that it has a bit more depth into it. Chord progression wise, it's a very straightforward 6th scale, the 7th scale, and then to the 1st, so now we're in E minor, the 5th. And then yeah, instrument wise, there is, I believe these are strings, which just lay down the chords. I play them in with my MIDI keyboard and then I play with the modulation wheel. Yeah, then the second thing I added is this. I love this sound. I made this one in Serum. Basically just an arpeggiator, and I put that underneath with a filter and stuff like that, especially this final part. And I believe this is more strings. So here you can already hear the da-da-da-da-da-da. Then onto the lead itself, I made this multiple layers. As you can hear, the first one is just a distorted saw wave. Then for the second layer, basically the same thing, but make the notch lower. Maybe it would be a good idea to get some processing off of this, so I can show that later. Then we have the third layer, which is a silent one. Then another layer. And then for the next layer, this is with old Serum even. That's how old this project is. And then finally, not always, but sometimes I feel like adding instruments and distorting them completely to add some grittier sounds that are a bit more naturally distorted than just a straight saw wave. Yes, that's basically the layers of the lead. So altogether the lead is... And then on the entire lead bus, we have the reverb and delay chain. Then we have a compressor. This is just an EQ and another EQ. And then for the chords, the second patch, the final layer. So together with the lead. So let's first dive into the instruments. I love making arpeggios to create like an ambiance. And for the second part of the break, there are these choir steps that you hear in the background, for which I did some hefty EQing because I wanted it to not fight with the sounds in the midst. So that's the instruments. So if you already add the instruments with the entire lead, you already hear how much the piano itself adds. So the signal chain goes to the reverb and delay separately, another one for dry signal, and after that it gets sent to the rest of the signal chain. Yes, that's exactly right. It's like using synths, but using synths I find really horrible, so I'm doing it like this. So how effect chains work in Ableton, these are 3 times the dry signal and they all just continue forward. So if I add another one, this is now a new dry signal that I'm adding. And on one of the dry signals, I'm adding a reverb that's 100% wet. On another channel, I'm adding a delay that's 100% wet. So there's now on this channel a dry signal in the middle, a completely 100% wet reverb chain on top, and a completely 100% delay chain on the bottom. And then afterwards, they continue to the rest of the chain. So that's the instrument part of it. And then the rest of the ambience comes from the synthesizers. First is that arpeggio patch. And then we have some chord parts. And a second layer of chords, which is just for the low end. And then we have the bass itself, which I love this Reese. I bounced a Reese and then put it in a sampler so I can automate the length and the start to create like the like sounds inside of a Reese. And afterwards, hard cut the bass because there is a sub underneath. Never expected to meet Noisia in a door track. Thank you so much for the compliment. I am not Noisia. Noisia is even more cracked. So yeah, the synths altogether sound like this. To conclude this, how important are background noises for your break? This is how the break of Hopeless sounds without any background sounds. And this is the importance of your background elements to really liven up the break a lot more. And then for the second half, we have drums and then claps. And then we reintroduce the piano. And we go to a new chord progression. And then for the elements in this build-up, we also get a reintroduction of this motif. We get risers, we get a fill to transition into the next part of the build-up. Are you trained in classical music? Not really. I followed the conservatory for roughly half a year during my studies of becoming a music producer. But a lot of the stuff that I learn is self-taught. I have just a deep interest in classical music and I have played classical music piano like for a while. So that's basically the build-up. And then we get into the main part, which is the drop. Which just repeats the lead, but then with sidechained chords. And of course the kick. And then the drop gets finished. We get this sound. We got the auto panner. And we make a riser out of strings by pitching it up 1 octave and choosing a chord that has way too much clashing notes. And then we go into... So these consist of a couple layers, choirs and brass. Then there are a lot of synths. And of course the lead that got introduced in the second drop. And most importantly, we introduce the melody of the second drops. And then we get into the speed chord drop. Then right here, we go suddenly to a chord to announce that this is not the end. We're still moving towards a new place of the track. So that's why that 5th scale degree chord, that 7th chord, that B dominant is placed right there. The final drop. With the 2 toms at the start, which I really did because then the first notes you hear in the melody is the da-da-da-da. Those B and C notes are really the thematic of the track. And we get the sort of screaming layer takes the overhand while the melody reaches its peak playing around those 2 notes, which also gets emphasized in the chords. And to add on to that, we also introduce a choir on the second. And the kick changes to a, in my opinion, harder kick. And then after that first half of the drop, we kind of need a way to loop back what it's been about, which is that first melody. So I introduced that by... And then continuing the... and then we're already at the end of the track. So in this section, we of course loop back to the main motif of the track, which is the continuously playing note. Only this time we actually wrap it up, being it continuing to loop. And the way we do that is by just staying on that 3rd chord, which is an E, like E minor chord with an add 2, like an added F sharp in there, which again, that little minor second note is really does a lot for the like the tension. And we end then on just the note E to kind of start the same way we began, with just a singular note. Yeah, I guess that's it for the track breakdown. I hope you liked the breakdown of Hopeless. I had a lot of fun doing this. If you have anything you would like to see, feel free to say it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks, which is March 24th for the Blind Producer Challenge. Bye bye!